Greetings, my glorious friends. I see that some people have arrived to the provocatively titled Bhagavatam session, which is called How the Soul Flirts with Intelligence, because that's basically what's going on. So let's jump in. Actually, all the guys who are here now probably don't need any backstory, so why even waste the time? Let's start with the new stuff. Tam aha lalitam vira savrida smita shobhanam snigdena panga pankena sprishta premod pramad bruva. So this is pretty. This is worded with irony, because you have the word vira, which means a big hero or a king or a warrior, and then you have savrida, which means a very gentle person. So the king is this big warrior, and this woman in the forest is just a gentle lady. But the gentle lady is going to attack the king figuratively and defeat him. So that's the irony here. So the analogy is the soul is vastly superior to the intelligence in terms of its strength. Nonetheless, the intelligence will dominate the soul. So here's how it translates. She coyly affixed an affectionate glance like an arrow to the glistening bowstring of her eyes and launched it at him with a flick of her eyebrows. So this again is beautiful. This is a often used analogy, metaphor. This is an often used metaphor in Sanskrit dramas, where the eyes are like a bow and they shoot Cupid's arrows. So what she does is savrita, or coyly, or with timidity, she puts a, what is this? Hang on a second. There's a smile involved here that doesn't get translated here. I will have to add it in as I explain it. With a beautifully smiling, soft, coy, with a coy smile, she affixes an affectionate glance, like an arrow, to the glistening bowstring of her eyes, and then with her eyebrows, which are the bow part of the bow, she flicks it. And the smile is like the hand pulling the bowstring. The bowstring is the glance. The arrow is the glance. The bowstring is the eyes, and the eyebrows are the bow. So when it flicks, then the arrows shoot up. So that's pretty beautiful, isn't it? She coyly affixed an affectionate glance like an arrow to the glistening bowstring of her eyes and launched it at him with a flick of her eyebrows. Pierced by it. Sprishta. That's a flower arrow. Cupid's arrows are made of flowers. So it's not really a piercing arrow, but it's more of a sprishta arrow, which means to touch. But anyway, since it's the arrow motif, I'll say pierced by it. The warrior king, the Vira, melted and spoke to her gently. He became Lalita. He was Vira, but now he became Lalita. Vira means tough like a hero, and Lalita means gentle and delicate. So when she pierced him with the Cupid arrow from her eyes, that melted his toughness and made him into a gentle person. Very nice, right? Now he's going to ask her a bunch of questions. Well, let me see what I have here. There's an important point here also. There's an important philosophical point in how the description of This is the beginning of the relationship between the king and the woman. So this is the beginning of the relationship between the soul and the intelligence. And the commentators explain that it's important to note that this is a love marriage, not an arranged marriage. So they just met in the forest and fell in love. And then the king initiates the relationship. So the same way, nobody is putting the soul into its situation. We have not been put into this world by some other force. We come into this world out of our volition, out of our following our desires. There's no God or gods that are responsible for you being in this world. You're responsible for being in this world. Nobody arranged the marriage between Puranjana and this lady. They met each other and they fell in love. It's an important point. You understand? Any questions so far? Autism. Well, not everybody's intelligence, you'll see, not everybody's intelligence is the same. There's a different woman for each person. So some of the functions might be broken. What if one of her bodyguards got sick? Or one of the bodyguards' wives got sick? Then some of the functions of the senses wouldn't operate. All right, now we move on. Now the king is going to ask. Finally, he's going to talk to her. He's going to ask her a bunch of questions. But remember now, this big hero is acting very, very gentle. Katam kanjapala shakshi. Katam kanjapala shakshi. Kasya siha kuta sati. Imam upapurim bhiru. Kim chikir shasi shangsame. There's one friend of mine who asked me to name their daughter astrologically. And I named her Biru. Or I suggested like 6 different applicable names, and they like the name Biru. It's, or was it Bilu or was it Bilu? Maybe it was Bilu. Anyway, I like this. This is a cute name, Biru. So here's his questions. This is a Katvam. Every question that he asks, almost every single one, he flatters her with a nice name. So he says, lotus petal wide-eyed girl, who are you? Katvam, who are you? Kanjapala, what is it? Kanjapalasha akshi. Your eyes are like the palasha of the kanja. A lotus has these huge leaves. And he says, your eyes look like those big, gigantic leaves. That's how he calls her. Lotus-eyed, wide girl. Lotus petal, wide-eyed girl. Who are you? Katvam. Kasyasiha kuta. Sati. And he calls her Sati, which means a gentle lady or a refined lady. Where have you come from? Kuta. And then he calls her timid one, Biru. Timid one. Gentle one, timid one. What do you wish to accomplish here near this city? Please explain this to me. Imam upapurim, having come close to this city, Biru, kim chikirshasi, why, what do you want to do here near this city? Samasame, please tell me, explain it to me. So who are you, where do you come from, and why are you here? Then he continues, Kaete nupatha yeta, Ikadasha mahabhatha, Eta lalana subru. Subru is another great name. Koyam tehi purasara. So this means Kae anupata. Who are all these anupatas? Who are all these followers? You have a lot of followers following you. Remember? The lady is there. She has 10 guards, and each guard has 100 maidservants or wives, some people translate it as. And then there's this serpent that's encircling them all with 5 heads. So now he's asking, who are all these other people with you? Kaete anupataye. Who are all these other people? Ekadasha, these 11 mahabhata, these 11 warriors, or 11 guards. Who are these people following at your command? 11 powerful soldiers, accompanied by all these women. Etavalana subru. And he calls her subru. Bru is your eyebrow. Subru means very nice eyebrows. Lovely browed lady. He just got shot by her eyebrows. So he's kind of mentioning that. And lovely browed lady, who is the serpent? Ko ayam te ahi. Who is this ahi? This serpent. Purasara, that moves in front of you. So he says, who are you? Where did you come from? Why are you here? Who are these people with you? 11 guards, all with 100 women, and a serpent that's moving in front of you. Now she replies. No, actually, now she doesn't reply. So she doesn't reply, but instead she glances at him a little bit, saying, what do you think? In reply, she merely glanced silently, asking with her eyes for him to try and answer his own questions. It's a good move. What do you think? Who do you think I am? Where do you think I came from? You must think something. This way you can tell what the person thinks of you. So he then answers that. He's now going to try to answer his own questions. He switches his voice a little bit. Tvam hrir Bhavanya sayata vagrama patim Vachinvati kim munivadrahovane Tad angrikamapta samastakamam Padmakosha patita karagrat. So he says, are you Hri? Hri is the goddess of modesty, or modesty personified as Hri. Tvam Hri, are you Hri? Or are you Bhavani? Bhavani is the goddess Parvati, Shiva's goddess. Tvam Hri Bhavani Asi Atha Vag Ramapati. Or are you Vak? Maybe you're Hri, maybe you're Bhavani, maybe you're Vak. I can't tell. Maybe you're the goddess of modesty, maybe you're the goddess Parvati, maybe you're the goddess Saraswati Vak, the goddess of intelligence. That's pretty funny, isn't it? He's pretty close with that. Maybe you are Rama, which is goddess Lakshmi, the goddess of bliss. But the Vichinvati kim munivajrahovane. But then why are you alone in the forest? Maybe you're a great sage. So he says, maybe, are you free? Are you Parvati? Are you Saraswati? Are you Lakshmi? But you're alone in the forest. Are you a sage? Or maybe you are looking for Pati Vichinvati. Maybe you're looking for your husband. Maybe he came out here and you're trying to find him. This is a leading question because he wants to know if she's married. Are you searching? And then he says, what he says here is rather forward. He says, or are you searching for your husband whose desires must be completely and amazingly fulfilled by just the bottoms of your feet? Tad angrikama abda samastakama. If he gave his kama to your feet, then his kama would be kamapta. If he gave his lust and his desire to you, then his lust and desire is totally fulfilled perfectly. Not even by you, but just by your feet. So he says, that would be a lucky man. Whoever is your husband is a lucky man. I think that you are a goddess, one of these goddesses, but there's one problem. Well, there's two problems. One problem is you're in the forest by yourself, but sometimes goddesses do that. The other problem is that where's your lotus flower? Goddess always carries a lotus flower. That's the symbol of the goddess. So kva padma kosha patita karagrat. So I think that you're a goddess, but I don't see you carrying a lotus. So I think that this lotus flower has fallen somewhere from the tips of your fingers. Very cool. Can you visualize or imagine his response? He asked her who she was. She said, "Who do you think I am?" silently. And he suggested, "I think you're a goddess looking for your husband, but I don't see your lotus flower, so I'm confused." Now, here's one of the points. What do you think this lotus flower represents? And what do you think this thing about if the husband gives his kama to you, then his kama will be fulfilled? That's the role of the intellect, and that's what the soul does. The soul has actually, its inherent trait is kama. What is it? Sorry, something is going on. A little bit distracting. So the soul is called Raso Vaisa. It has rasa kamyata bahusya prajayata, because the consciousness is the thing which experiences, so it has a thirst to experience. That thirst to experience is kama. So consciousness and kama are inseparable. The consciousness of the soul puts its kama into the intellect, and the intellect fulfills it. The intellect is the thing that allows the soul to experience through senses and to gain the experiences that it desires. So it's the one that fulfills the kama of the soul. Tarangri kama apta samasta kama. And then this thing, what do you think the lotus is? Let me see if you wrote anything. What does the lotus symbolize? Very good, Marie. It's very close. Very close. So this... Oh, these are also interesting points. I have another question for you, but let me answer this question about the lotus. There's a lot of interesting points. The lotus is the soul, like Murray says, is maybe it's enlightenment or something, or correct. The lotus signifies that the consciousness itself has its inherent potential for accurate perception. This is what the intelligence is a expansion of, is a manifestation of. Intellect is a manifestation or a tool for the consciousness, which has inherent capacity for chit, which is comprehension. And that inherent capacity for comprehension is the lotus, perfect comprehension, true comprehension. But she has hidden the lotus flower. She doesn't see the lotus flower. The intellect keeps that perfect comprehension unseen, keeps it someplace else, and the soul doesn't know where it is. Why? Because the consciousness wants to experience. You'll see why. Because he wants to experience something else. There's a couple of other interesting points here. He's saying, I think you're a goddess, I think you're a goddess, right? The commentators say, this is what we all think. We all think that our intellect is the best. It must be the supreme intellect. It's so great. The way that we perceive the world, the way that we understand people, and the way that we understand things, it must be the way they really are. It must be the best. So everybody individually thinks that they have Rama, they have Lakshmi, they have Parvati, they have Vak as their consort. But actually everybody, if you think about it for a second, you realize you have ordinary intellect. But the love of the soul for the intellect makes the intellect seem so immensely amazing. Your individual intellect. And then another point that is very interesting was, why is he asking her who she is? Doesn't he know who she is? If she's the intellect and he's the soul, doesn't he recognize her? This is not his first incarnation, remember? He has been searching, he's been wandering all over the earth, going from city to city. So that means he's been incarnating from one body to another. Certainly in each body there's been intellect. And if there's, as the commentators have said before, the relationship between the two is yadrichaya. She appears out of nowhere. They don't have a causality to their relationship. The relationship is non-causal. It's eternal. So since they have an eternal relationship, they're eternal companions. The soul and the intellect are eternal companions. So why doesn't he recognize her? This is another interesting point. Why does he ask who she is? The point is that in each birth, just as the body appears different in each birth, the mind and the intellect appear quite different in each birth. So the soul doesn't recognize the intellect as being the same intellect that it knows. And this is especially true when you come out of animal species into human species. The intellect is vastly different, because now all of a sudden it's talkative. It has command of words. So it seems like a completely different person. He doesn't recognize her. Now, so we'll move on. Any questions? So if you have any questions, let me know. So far, she hit him with the arrow of her glance, made him gentle, and then he starts to talk to her very submissively, asking her these very gentle questions. Who are you? Where you come from? Why are you here? What do you want to do here? Are you a goddess? I think you're a goddess, but where's your lotus flower? Why are you wandering alone like a sage in the forest? Are you looking for your husband? I wish I was your husband. That's a lucky guy. That's what he said basically so far. Can intellect devolve? Yeah, your body, you can go up or down in species. Now, he is going to say, wait a minute, since you don't have a lotus flower, there's also something else interesting about you. That means that you're not a goddess. So here's what he says. Is this it? Yeah. Na samvaro vanyatama bruvi sprik. Purim imam vira varena sakam. Arhasyalankartum adabra karmana. Lokam param shri iva yagyapumsa. So here he says, Nasam Varovu. Varovu is also a very nice name or address. He says, "Oh, great lady Varovu." Varoru. He says, you must not be any of these. You must not be Lakshmi or Parvati, etc. Because Bhuvi Sprik, you're touching the ground. Your feet are on the ground. So when the goddesses appear on earth, they're not actually on earth. And you can tell that because their feet are not exactly on the ground. So he said, since your feet's on the ground, you are a person of this planet. You're a person of this realm, of this world. Nasamvro vanyatama bhuvisprik. You're not one of those puram. So you must not be any of these goddesses because your feet touch the earth. So that's good. Because if you're a goddess, then I can't marry you because I'm just a human. But if you're not a goddess, then we're in the same category. So he says, so perhaps this city with its great lord might be worthy of ornamenting your glorious life. So since you're not a goddess, then maybe this city could be your home. And maybe its great lord could be your husband. Perhaps the city with its great... And he says, perhaps we are worthy of ornamenting your glorious life. Very lovely way to put it. Arhat. Maybe we are arhat, or worthy of alankartu, becoming your alankar, becoming your decoration of your adabra karmana, of your glorious life. Just like lokam param. So you're here in this lok of Bu, because I can see your feet are actually on Bu. You're actually touching the ground. So you're in this lok. But we could live together in this lok just like Vishnu and Lakshmi live in the highest lok. Just lokam param shriva yagyapumsa. So you could, since you're here in this world, you could live with me in this city. The same way that Shri lives with Vishnu in Paramlok, in the Supreme Lok. So just as Vishnu and Paramlok is arhat, or deserving of ornamenting the goddess of fortune, similarly I think that myself and the city are worthy of ornamenting you. So this is very interesting. First of all, just at face value, it's very nice. The way that a real man speaks to a woman is very careful and respectful, like to the max. That's just very interesting in and of itself. But the analogies are so interesting too. So what do I have here? Since the soul, what he's doing here is he's comparing himself to Vishnu and comparing her to Shri. So he says, I know you're not really Shri and I'm not Vishnu, but we could play. We could pretend. We could be like that. So since the soul, why is it like this? This is illustrating the fact that the soul is a sample of Vishnu. It's a ray of Vishnu. It's the amsha of Vishnu. So since the soul is an amsha of Vishnu, just like in a navamsha you have Aries navamsha, it's like Aries Rashi. You have Taurus, Navamsha, it's like Taurus Rashi. So similarly, the Amsha of Vishnu is like Vishnu. It has the same qualities that Vishnu has. Since the soul is an Amsha of Vishnu, then it's going to try to enjoy in the same way, naturally. So therefore, the relationship between the soul and its powers, which manifest through the intellect, is a rough analog. Although flawed, it's a rough analog of the relationship between Vishnu and Vishnu's powers, which manifest through Shri. So you can get, that's why the Upanishads say tattvam asi, which is anyartha paramarsha, which is the analogous way of teaching. They say you are that, so understand this, and then you understand that. If you understand yourself and how you act, then you'll have a clue about how the Supreme acts and feels. Okay, any questions about that? Yes. Yes, Rabbi. How does the concept of ego relate to the intellect? The consciousness is the one who has... The consciousness of the soul of the king is the one who has the potency called I. So Atma is Aham Artha. The one who is the meaning of the pronoun I is Atma, the self. But the I is... The potential of the meaning of the word I is manifest through the intellect and what the intellect evolves, the senses and the world, its connection to the world. So in other words, when you have the word I, then you put M and then you put something, right? I am, fill in the blank. So the soul itself is the I part, and then the intellect is the M, the ability for the soul to specify what it is, experience some specificity to it. And then everything that comes out from the soul's connection with the intellect fills in the blanks of I am what. So ego is actually the soul, but the manifest ego is the soul and its connection and its relationship with everything. It's our relationship with everything that gives us a sense of who we are. But the one who is having a sense of being someone is the soul. Let me think. Bardo. I think that's one donation from Bardo. Thank you, Bardo. So when people say we're here to do a job, do they mean we are here to experience and understand ourselves? I don't know what they say. I can't say what people say. Some people may have other ideas. I don't know. If the Vedas say that we're here to do a job, then I can explain what that is after you read it in its context. But I can't really explain what other people mean. You're here to do a job means that your karma has put you here and you have certain duties as a result. That's right, Zena. All right, Ayush wants to know if on ground or off the ground has to do with the levels of lokas. If you're a goddess, then you're not really on the Bhu Mandal. So when you manifest in the Bhu Mandal, you're not actually a part of the Bhu Mandal. So there would be some, just like, in a dream, you won't see yourself in a reflection. Similarly, when things manifest through the mind, not everything is actually lined up perfectly. So when the gods manifest in Bhuloka, they do so through your comprehension. You might be seeing it and somebody else might not. And so it's like a dream. Things won't always line up. All right, that's my explanation. Now, let's see, we got a few more verses to cover. Yad esha mapanga vikanditendriyam savrida bhava smita vibramad bhuva. Now he's going to plead with her. Tvayopashishto bhagavan manobhava prabadhate tanagrihana shobhane. Now he's going to plead. Because when he says, he's a bit forward with her, actually. He suddenly became a bit forward. And he said, well, since your feet are on the ground, that means you're a woman of this world, so you could live with me in my city. That's a bit abrupt. So she looks away. When she looks away, that puts him in anxiety. Oh, I said something that she didn't like. That puts him into panic mode, and so he goes then to pleading. He switches over to pleading. So he says, you pierced me with the coy arrow of an affectionate glance, launched from the bow of your brows by the pull of your smile. Now I'm injured, and emotions are overwhelming me like when blood pours out of a wound. When you get injured by the arrow of Cupid, the emotions pour out of the wound. So now I am injured and emotions are overpowering me. Beautiful lady, show me compassion. Let me look upon... And then the next verse. Tvad ananam subhru sutara lochanam. These are nice words. Vyalambini laka vrinda samvritam Uniyame darshayana valgu vachakam Yadvridaya nabhimukam shuchi smite. The word Tara is interesting. Tara, Yoga Tara. Tara means a star. Sutara lochanam. Your eye, the star of your eyes is very beautiful. So it's the star of your eye is this part, the iris. Subru, stara. So he's saying, I'm happy that you pierced me with this glance, but this is now you've defeated me. So now I'm your burden. When you defeat somebody, then you have to become the master. That means that now you have to manage the country or whatever. So you defeated me with this arrow, and that now you have to take care of me. So he says, please show me compassion. Tad ananam, let me see your face. Let me look, because she turned her face away from him when he said that. Let me look upon your lovely face, those eyebrows framing your eyes of such lovely color, surrounded by heavy curls of thick black hair. Vyalambi. It's like heavy, bouncy, but not like jiggly bouncy, but like bouncing heavy. Nila laka vrinda. A lot of curls, a lot of hair and curls that are thick and heavy. That face must have lovely things to say. Valgu vachana. Why aren't you speaking? This face is so beautiful. I want to hear its voice. That face must have lovely things to say, and suchismite, very delightful smiles to show. So don't let timidity, vidaya, navimuka, please don't let timidity prevent you from showing those to me. And this is the end for today. So the point here, this is very interesting. This point I like a lot. So when he pleads with the intellect, he says, I want to see your face. He forgot all about this lotus. He doesn't care about the lotus. Where's the lotus? I thought a person like this should be carrying a lotus. I mean, she's obviously divine. She has 11 bodyguards. Each one has 100 maidservants. She's got a serpent encircling her, protecting her with 5 heads. She's not an ordinary woman. She might not be Lakshmi, but she's the equivalent, she's the analog of Lakshmi to him. So, where's the lotus flower? He doesn't care. He doesn't want to know where it is. He wants to see her face. What's the face? Remember, the face is where it has a lovely forehead, it has lovely nose, ears, etc. All the sensations are located on the face, all the sense organs. So that means the soul wants to experience the sensual world through the intellect. It could experience its inherent potential for knowledge through this lotus flower. But for whatever reason, this particular soul is not interested in that. It's interested in the woman's face. And so it gets confused by its fascination with her face and forgets about the lotus flower, or ignores the lotus flower. It could have begged, the commentators say, that the soul could beg this woman, show me the lotus. And the commentator says, this is vidya, this woman is vidya, which means the soul's capacity to know. But she's functioning now as bahirmukh vidya, or like externally oriented, extrinsically oriented intellect. She could function as antarmukh vidya, she could function as internally oriented intellect if he requests, but he doesn't request. He could say, you pierced me with this arrow, and now I'm so confused, I'm overwhelmed by emotions. Please make this stop. Help me stop this. But he doesn't say that. He says, you pierced me with your arrow, and now I'm very interested in enjoying you. Let's do it. Not help me get rid of these feelings, but help me fulfill these feelings, is what he asks. He could ask, this confusion, this weird feeling that I'm having of being overwhelmed by emotions, you have power, you're divine, you're amazing. Can you make this stop? You made it start. Can you make it stop? And then she would transform into vidya. Instead of saying, can you help me end this intoxication? He says, can you make this intoxication pleasant? I'm intoxicated. You shot me with this arrow. Now I want to enjoy extrinsic sensuality. I can ask you to make that intoxication stop, or I can ask you to make it a nice intoxication. And then what do I ask? I ask for the nice intoxication. So this is an important thing. Like, nobody is putting the soul into this situation. It's not an arranged marriage. Nobody's forcing the soul. In fact, the intellect itself is not dragging the soul into these things. The intellect itself could be the vehicle through which the soul gains its self-knowledge. If it requests it, we can use our intellect to gain our self-knowledge, or we can use our intellect to just get more intoxicated and try to enjoy the intoxication. So the king is illustrating what the conditioned soul does. It asks the intelligence to make a nice intoxication. You understand? Any questions? That's it for today, because after this, the next section that we'll do next week is she's going to reply. So we can stop it here where this is the end of his address to her. Then that'll stop, and then she'll address him. Oh, thank you, Marie. Prema, you think that his love is very shallow, but his love is very deep. He's going to be in the honeymoon phase. This is a very long honeymoon phase. Prema, actually, somewhere your name got mentioned here. It was actually called Prema. What he felt for her is kind of curious. Let me try to find it. Meanwhile, if you have a question, you can ask it. maybe it's in a verse from the next. I thought I saw the word prema. No, I can't find it now. Maybe in this first one. I've got one more verse to check. Yes, it's in the very first verse that we did today. Premod Brahmad Bhuva. So your name Prema is there in the first verse that we did today. Tam Ahalalitam Vira Savridav Smrita Shobhanam Snigdhena Pangapankena Sprushta Prema Ud Brahmad Bhuva. So this prema is a very strong, infatuating, romantic type of love. Alrighty, any questions? No, it's not Rahu. Zena asks, so is where they met represented by Rahu? No, where they met is represented by Venus. Rahu is a wild place. They didn't meet in the wild with ant hills and snake holes around. And wild animals, did they? The animals were all tame and nice, and the garden was quite cultivated. By whom we know not. So it wasn't a wild area, it's a Venus area. Samurai asks, so the soul is in this world because he falls in love with his own internal tools and capacities. Yeah. It's not really that. It's the concept that there's a this world and a that world is just a device. An explanatory device. It's not really that there's a this world and a that world. It's just that there's perception and misperception. And depending on your perception, that creates your world. And the key thing that is going on with the soul signified by this Paranjana is that he sees himself as Yagya Pumsa. He sees himself in the role of Vishnu. He sees himself in the role of Bhagavan. So therefore, he does not see somebody else occupying that seat. The soul's relationship with intellect is, wow, you're just like Shri and I'm just like Yagya. You're just like Lakshmi and I'm just like Vishnu. So he will not perceive that you can't be just like Vishnu. There's Vishnu actually already sitting there. There's Bhagavan is already there. You're not just like him. I mean, you're not him. So the perception which doesn't perceive Bhagavan is the perception that Paranjana is having and that we're all having. And that's what we call the external or the extrinsic or the outward world. It's called external, extrinsic, outward because it's lacking the center, which is Bhagavan. It's the same world, but it's perceived completely differently by a person who perceives Bhagavan at its center and a person who doesn't. Okie dokie. Do all souls do this? Om Chamunda asks, or just this one particular soul? If he were a better soul, would he ask for enlightenment? Not all souls do this, but all of us do this. Everyone who is existing in confusion, everyone who's existing without experiencing Bhagavan, we're this type of soul. There's two types of souls, two broad categories of souls. I saw this movie, The White Tiger. It's a painful movie to watch. But I like how he says there's two castes in modern India. Fat people and skinny people. So basically there's two castes of souls. There's souls that perceive Bhagavan and there's souls that don't. The majority are the ones that perceive Bhagavan, but the ones that don't. And by the way, the white tiger has nothing to do with this, but it just popped into my mind. The ones that don't, there's tons of us, we're an infinite number of us, but it's comparatively a minority. But the analogy of Puranjana is an analogy of us. That's why Narada is telling it to King Barishat. He's telling this metaphorical story to Barishat because this story is the story of Barishat. And not just Barishat, but anybody who acts like Barishat. Okay, I'll get off. Thank you.